Hello students. Now in this session we are going to discuss in the series how is federalism practiced. We're going to discuss about the center-state relation. We have already discussed in the previous section about the power sharing arrangement in a country between the center and the state governments. Okay, so this is basically in this session we're going to discuss that how center state relations have to be strengthened, they have to be restructured. Okay, now this particular image which I have put here, this is just for gaining some extra knowledge. At this stage we don't have to go much deeper into it, but then of course there are legislative relations between center and state, administrative relations, and financial relations. So as you can see here, territorial extent of center and state legislation, what the center is going to make laws in which areas, state is going to make laws in which areas, that has been specified. Then distribution of legislative subjects, as we talked about, the union list, the state list, what kind of, and the concurrent list, what subjects they are, it consists of. Then parliamentary legislation in the state field. Okay, how parliament, is going to make, laws pertaining to the states. Okay, and center's control over state legislation. How the center, what kind of control the center can have on the state level, making laws when state is made, they are making laws. So naturally, when like suppose we take concurrent list, okay, so if there is a dispute, we understood that there's a dispute, then whatever the center, the laws the center makes, that is prevalent. Okay, so these have been specified law making, areas, how there should be a relationship between center and state. Administrative relations, center's direction to the state, how it has to be administered. And we know that India, our federal structure, has given more powers to the central government than the state government. Cooperation between center and state. This is students with just a revision which we have already done about power sharing between state and center. There has to be cooperation. There has to be mutual understanding between the central government and the state government for smooth running of a democracy. Then all India services there. There are so many all India services. Okay, as we have UPSC, the civil services. Then we have in different departments we have central services. That is what is known as all India services. Then we have got state services. So how the country has to be administered, how it has to be shared between the central government and the state government. If you remember, we discussed in class 9 about this. Like suppose, for example, UPSC, or UPSC exam through which civil servants or permanent executive they are chosen. So they have, they are deputed. They are into many times they have the cadres where they work. Okay, and then when there's deputation, they also go and work at the central level. So there are so many all India services. An integrated judicial system. We have India, that is what we have, unified judicial system. We all know that there's a lower court at the district level, then at the state level there is high court, and then we have an apex court that is called the Supreme Court. Okay, so we have a unified judicial system or integrated judicial system. Then relations during emergency. So this also has been written. If there's an emergency for any reason in the country, so that also has been specified, that how the center and the state, they are going to agree to each other, or what actions they have, they have to take. And then financial relations between state and center. Again, the effect of emergency. So naturally, when there emergency was, how it is going to affect the finance or the financial condition of India, all this, and how it has to be catered. As we mentioned, then grants in aid to the states. You must have watched in news, or you must have read these kind of news that, of course, the state government has asked the central government to help them, to give them aid. Okay, if there's any kind of crisis, also the center takes care of the state governments. So that also, as we mentioned, distribution of tax revenue. Okay, now as there's a change where GST for these kind of taxation and where financial matters are concerned, this also basically has been mentioned very clearly, and then allocation of tax powers. Okay, now naturally things have changed here because of GST, but few things they have to, like, excise on few products. We know, it is still it has to be, brought into GST and all these things. But whatever it is, if there are changes, alterations, okay, that has to be basically, that can be mentioned, that can be changed. But that is, of course, there's a process to it. We all know that how at the center the parliament works, at the state level, because we have got legislative assemblies. Okay, so now, but this is just some extra knowledge which we are sharing here, and then see basically what we have to do in this class is we need to understand restructuring the center-state relations. It's one more way in which federalism has been strengthened in practice. Okay, so why there is a need to restructure? Okay, as we discussed, that there has been things written in the constitution. We have done in class 9th also. Here also, we need to understand that only writing, okay, the writing the provisions and the provisions in the constitution is not going to suffice, is not going to be sufficient. We need to see that how practically it has to be strengthened. Okay, then only a democratic system will be a strong one. So let's see these points. And now, how the constitutional arrangements are for sharing power works in reality depends on a large extent on how the ruling parties and leaders follow these arrangements. That is very important. Okay. Now, naturally, we know that what powers the central government has got, what powers the state government have got. They have got their own jurisdiction if it comes to lawmaking or legislation, it comes to administration. But then, how the ruling parties, what kind of cooperation they have? Are they cohesive? Are they working with mutual interest? Okay, in cooperation, that is very important. For a long time, we have seen, that same party ruled both the center and most of the states. We all know that Indian National Congress was a party which gave us independence, and people had, immense faith in that party. And at that point of time, there were not many parties also. There were not so many regional parties. Okay, that was one of the main parties that had a good, a position in the society. People believed in them. So we saw that most, the same party ruled at the central government also, and even in the states. Now see, as we have mentioned, like suppose we have BJP government in Uttar Pradesh, we have Congress government in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, okay, and Chhattisgarh is also Congress, okay. Madhya Pradesh, it was, but then you saw that how it changed again. There was some problem within the party, so now BJP is ruling. We look at Kerala, they have a Communist party. So means at one point of time, it was majorly the same party ruled at the center and even at the states. Okay, and in that condition, in that scenario, when the ruling party at the state level was different, the parties that rule the center, they try to undermine the power of the states. So this was some, you can say, it was not a good practice. It was actually, the autonomy, the freedom which should be given to the states, as it is mentioned in the constitution, it was not followed, and so that was a matter of concern, and that required, changes. Now then, in those days, the central government would often, misuse the constitution to its misuse the constitution to dismiss the state governments that were controlled by rival parties. Okay, so this basically, this was something, it was wrong practice. And then, of course, objections, who will raise objections? Naturally, the opposition party. So these kind of practices were found in a country. And then, of course, this is not surely a good practice. It undermines the spirit of federalism, the principles of federalism, which actually is one of the basic foundations of our constitution. Okay, then we see that at 1990s, after, that was a time when we have seen a lot of change coming in our political system, and it was quite significant after 1990s. This period saw the rise of regional political parties in many states. Yes, students, we are going to discuss about this in the chapter political parties further in details. So, but yes, so that was so many regional parties coming in, because when we're talking about the main party which ruled, like the Congress, it was a very strong party. Then it started getting into, there were divisions in the Congress, and so after 1990s, you can say there was gradually, because see, every country has to have change, and India is a very diverse country. So these changes were seen in the political arena also. And then we saw that because of so many regional political parties popping up, coming up, then, that was the beginning of the era of coalition governments at the same time. We were even discussing about the cartoons which is given in the book. Okay, if you look at the cartoons, we in the class, we will certainly discuss upon that. So basically, how when where there are two things. If the central government is going to be, is going to dictate its terms, it's not going to give autonomy to the states. That is also very dangerous for democracy. That's not healthy for democracy. And if suppose it's a coalition government, many parties are coming together and forming the government, that also has to be, that has got many challenges. Well, as since no single party, why it happened? Because of so many parties coming up. Oh, the members, the main members who were in one party, they started branching out. Okay, so not a single party, when a single party was not getting majority in the Lok Sabha, then what happened? Naturally, the president would call the party which has got major number of of seats. Okay, and they'll be invited, but then they have to be, they have to get together, they have to collide. Basically, they have to form an alliance. Now, students, like coalition governments, they are basically two types of coalition governments. Okay, one is pre-poll alliance, before the elections an alliance is made, and one is after the elections. Parties, if they know none of the parties, they get majority, so they will come together, and like-minded parties, they come together. Many a times we have seen that even opportunists also, they get together. But that is the decision of the parties, and then they form the government. Okay, if they prove that they've got the numbers, so naturally the president is going to invite that coalition. Okay, now since so this was, this actually changed, and as you can see here, since no single party got a clear majority in Lok Sabha, the major national parties had to enter into an alliance with many parties, including several regional parties, to form a government at the center. It happens. Okay, maybe they are not national parties. As I told you, we'll discuss at length in the further chapter. And so they do make that is kind of negotiation, and it's always very difficult to lead a coalition government. Okay, and this led to new culture of power sharing and respect for the autonomy of state governments. We can say that in one way, it's if we see the good thing about coalition government, then we can say that the regional parties are getting some importance, And because of the regional parties, those regions may be somewhere, if they were neglected, they will have some participation and the power sharing is better. But the other than the demerit, you can say that it is sometimes very messy and it is a big challenge to actually take care of, a coalition government. Okay, right now in the present times, if you look at the present government, it is a coalition government, it is NDA government, but because the leading party, that is BJP, they have got clear majority, so they are able to take decisions because they have got majority in the Lok Sabha. Okay, now why did Supreme Court intervene? Why did Supreme Court interfere? Yes, there was a trend. This trend was, basically of the central government, you can say, undermining the autonomy of the state government, was checked by the Supreme Court. We all know that it is horizontal power sharing. Therein, what happens, the judiciary can keep a check on the executive keeps a check on the judiciary, and that is how, and even on the legislature, so that they complement each other. So when the system was somewhere, the Supreme Court had to intervene, had to interfere, and this was supported, by a major judgment of the Supreme Court that made it difficult for the central government to dismiss state governments in an arbitrary, okay, that is arbitrary manner. Okay, so arbitrary manner means that the central government cannot take decisions according to their own whims and fancies. They cannot act like an autocratic ruler. Okay, it's democracy. They have to abide by what is written in the constitution. But because it was not being done properly, so the Supreme Court had to intervene, had to interfere. Okay, and then of course, because of these things, see, look at the development, look at the changes. Regional parties, they are getting some kind of important autonomy. So that is good. That has really strengthened. Though, as I told you, it's challenging. It's not that easy. But then again, if it is single party government is there, then the opposition has to be very strong. These are some, good things. These are some features which makes a democracy very, very strong. Okay, so thus federal power sharing is more effective today than it was in early years after the constitution came into force. And naturally, it is when there are people, demanding, and it has to be seen that it needs to be good. So the working has to be smooth. So restructuring of the state-central relationship is very important to strengthen democracy. And this makes federalism a success. Okay, thank you so much. See you in the next video.